So nowadays, inflation in Canada is a hot topic in the newspaper and the news channel. So that's how the inflation is fluctuating in the Canada. So our group D will going to present the topic that is related to the inflation rise in Canada. In the past month, to begin with, the inflation is a critical indicator of economic health of a country, which has been attracting a lot of attention in past in few months making in Canada. So the consumer price index statistics that has to be released this week can expect it to be one of the interesting topic of for the economics. So the Canadian inflation rate in June 2023 finally dropped back into target zone, settling at the 2.8%. The economists already warned that the relief may last for a few months. It is not permanent. It is temporary. To overcome the inflation, the Bank of Canada has granted both has granted both the price stability and attain maximum sustainable employment. To attain this goal, they utilize the monetary policy to especially interest rate. So the Bank of Canada is going to do going to plan something related to the monetary policy. This could reduce inflation. The analysts have been saying a shift in the inflation due to the increasing cost of efficiency, due to the increasing cost of energy. So, due to this, the Canada economic growth changes in the labor market, and most important, the recent rise in the unemployment rate. So, I request my friend to change the slide. So, in this slide, I'm going to talk about the unemployment percentage that fluctuate in Canada from the past years. So the statistics on Canada employment rate, which demonstrate that the labor market in the Canada saw considerable change. The COVID-19, the pandemic year, which impacted most the unemployment. So in 2020, employment unemployment rises almost 9.46%, which can be shown in the graph. So in 2021, that was around 7.46%. A decline was seen in 2022, that was 5.2%, and in 23, the unemployment rate reached 5.5%. So I request my friends to carry on this PPT.
Hello, everyone. I would like to give you some more information about our findings, observation, and implications regarding our research on Canada's increasing inflation rates and the response of the Bank of Canada to sustain stability. Before starting to talk about Canada's inflation rate, let's have a look what the determinants of inflation in the country. Demand pull and cost push inflation are the two determinants. So Phillips curve is another demonstrator of inflation, which means trade-off between inflation and unemployment. In other words, reduced inflation may increase unemployment, while an efficient labor market with low unemployment may cause greater inflation. Other indicators such as GDP growth, employment statistics, industrial production are crucial for the health of an economy that the central banks monitor regularly. So, finding in our research show that Canada's annual inflation rate has reached the central bank's target range of 2.8% in June 2023. When we look at the causes of high inflation rate, rising petrol cost is blamed for this increase. Bank of Canada's response to this increase is rise in interest rates by a quarter of 1 percentage point in July 2023. Strong economic growth and labor market in Canada first led to the increase in rates. However, a rise in unemployment rate of 3 months from 5% to 5.5 suggests that the economy may be delayed. Economic uncertainty keeps going on whether the Bank Canada is going to keep rising the interest rates or not. Some predict more rate increases, while others think a break is necessary. So under all these discussions, we can implicate that by increasing interest rate, the central bank is dedicated to maintaining stable prices. Achieving successful inflation control now demands a balanced approach integrating job growth and pricing steadiness. Let's talk about our observation during our research. Now we can see that in our research. In over the past few years, inflation rate in Canada has shown a notable volatility. Also, there has been a sharp increase in 2021 and 2022. We can also say that in 2023, in June, uh, witnesses inflation easing up, also, wherein rates slipped to 2.8%. We can also say that 2% target inflation of central bank is exited. So now all the things that I want to say about my part is that one. Now I'm taking over the presentation to my group mate Vijay to give you some more information.
Thank you, Melton. So, I want to discuss firstly economic growth and inflation from the impact on the last 3 or 4 years in the overall Canada. So first of all, what is actually economic growth? Uh, Actually, the overall increase in the production of like a products, goods, services in a one nation or a state from a one period to another period is basically economic growth. So how does economic growth works? So how we can say that like one nation's economic growth is increased or decreased? So I will clear this thing with the help of this picture. So here showing is increase aggregate production. When the nation's economic growth is increased, then automatically the production of any nation is increased. It means production means the more manpower required, more labor required, more jobs creates. So automatically the money basically flowing, and people having a lot of jobs, people having a lot of money. And secondly, the improved market value means if a market we have a less supply, less things, and if the production will be more, then automatically the supply will be equal, supply will be more. And if the people having a sufficient money, enough money, then definitely they will be purchase that things from the market. And if the people will purchase, then definitely they will pay tax. And from that tax, the government will basically get the money from taxes. The government having a lot of money or enough money, then automatically that government will use that money for improve the infrastructure, for the services, for the basically provide the uh, people benefit. So automatically all these things are the nation benefit, that the economic growth of that country basically increased. Now, what is inflation? Actually, inflation is an increase in the money supply. Like if people having a more money and the supply or the product that is basically less or shortage, then that thing basically inflation. Like people have to purchase that sufficient or less things to pay more and more. And how we can basically calculate the inflation? Like the price of year second minus the price of year first means past year upon past year into 100, we can calculate the inflation. I will basically elaborate or clear the inflation with this picture, like how inflation, demand pull, cost push, or built-in works. Like we are seeing in the first picture, a lot of people are waiting for purchase anything, and the actual rate of that sneakers is only $100, but people are also willing to pay $150. Still they are basically waiting, or still they are not getting that thing. Similarly, in the cost push, when the raw material, when the gas, when the helium is basically increased from 10 to 20, the output, the balloon seller basically increased his price from 5 to 10. How inflation occurred. And in the third picture, when the prices of all the things, all the goods, all the services became increased, then automatically wages became increased, because government have to participate, government have to basically interference to manage all these things, to manage the inflations, to increase the wages, so that the maintenance, basically living cost, to maintain the living cost for the all general people. Now, how Canada's economic
Right.
growth and inflation basically work from last 3 to 4 years? We can clearly see in 2019, economic growth and inflation basically equal approximately 1.9%. But in next year, 2020, the rate fell down, the economic growth, and inflation is only 0.8 or 9% in 2020. Why the economic growth became down or negative, like 5%, -5%? Because that time COVID hits. That time COVID hits, lot of people having lost their job, loss of plants, loss of manufacturers, loss of companies became shut down. So government basically doesn't getting the income from the people, and basically people having a not sufficient money to earn their basing or earn, basically to get the bread and butters. So that's why it a greatly negative impact in 2020. And if we show in 2021, the economic growth increased when the life became continue in 2021 after COVID, and the people goes to went to work, and they did job. When a company or when industries became continues, then the economic growth basically going to increase, and it reached approximately 5% in 2021. And basically the inflation is only, we can say that, is less than the economic growth. And it basically hit, inflation is 2022, it basically hit more than 6%. And economic growth is basically less, is approximately 3.7 to 8%. It is basically because because in the Canada, overall supply of things may be short. That's why people have a lot of money, but the supply things are short. That's why the inflation going to be up. So all these things are basically related with the inflation and economic growth rate. So now I am going to request to my next subordinate, kindly continue this slide. Thank you so much.
Hello everyone. I would like to give information about demand pull information, pull inflation and cost push inflation. Firstly, demand pull inflation. When demand for goods or services rises faster than the supply of those goods and services, the result is demand pull inflation. Demand pull inflation is when there is an increase in aggregate demand and the supply remains the same or decrease. When supply cannot meet growing demand, prices for goods and services are pulled higher. You can see in the slide that demand pull inflation occurs when the overall demand for goods and services in an economy exceeds its supply, leading to a general increase in price. There are some effects of demand pull inflation. Firstly, rising prices, consumer goods become more expensive. Secondly, decreased purchasing, money buys less. Thirdly, uncertainty, business may struggle to plan for the future. Now you can see in the graph and table, it shows the inflation and demand for inflation in Canada. In 2019, the inflation was decreased and demand for inflation is increased with 80. In the next year, 2020, again the inflation was decreased and demand for inflation was increased. But in 2021, the inflation was increased, but demand for inflation was decreased. In 2022 also, the inflation was uh, increased and the demand for inflation was decreased. It shows the negative relation between the inflation and demand for inflation. Now second, please next slide. Now I can speak on cost push inflation. an inflation that starts with an increase in costs is called cost push inflation. Cost push inflation, and inflation that starts with an increase in costs is called cost push inflation. There are two main sources of increased cost. First one is an increase in the money wage rate. Second one is an increase in the money price of raw materials such as oil. There is an example of cost push inflation. If wages of workers are raised, then the unit cost of production also increases. You can see in the graph that in 2019, the energy price was 0, and impact on inflation was 2. It means that it shows the positive relation between the price and the inflation. When price increases, the impact on inflation is also increased. Now I would like to call Amanpreet Singh
Thank
to
you very much,
conclude
Amandeep,
the
for
report.
inviting me. Thank you very much for inviting me, Amandeep. So basically, the Canadian government is planning to do many monetary policies. They are changing their policies according to the inflation so that they can increase the inflation rate. So nowadays, they are putting cap on the international students, so that the people who are already living in Canada can get more job. This can reduce the unemployment. Apart from this, this can also lead to reduce the inflation. So in the last slides, we have the references from where we have gathered a lot of information. So these are the references from which we have gathered the information. So all the links are present in the last slide. Thank you very much for this for this presentation, and thank you.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.